Welcome to the On Stage podcast, where we deep dive into the power of music and entertainment. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have the privilege of spending time with a man whose voice has been a beacon of hope and faith for many. His soul-stirring melodies and profound lyrics have touched hearts worldwide. Nominated for numerous awards and known for his charitable spirit, we like that. Please welcome the inspiring gospel artist Howard Gripp.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So Howard Gripp started his career at a young age, began playing the drums when he was 6 years old and continued to play music throughout his school years. And at the age of 16, he formed a band called Flight, which I like to talk about that, and played at a bar for the first time in the same year. This was the jumping off point for his music career. So not only did you play in a rock band for many years at Flight, but that's a significant moment in your life as it marked the beginning of your music, right?
Right.
So, Howard, I know you're originally a rock and roller, and you're now fully in the Christian contemporary rock world. Howard, it's pleased to meet you. I'm really honored to have you on the show. Can you tell us about your journey into gospel music?
Well, like I started in the rock and roll world when I was 16. Played my first. We actually rented a hall and put a band together and rented a hall, and I got bitten by the bug. I mean, I did music all through school, all the way from grade school all the way through high school, and I wanted to go out and be that big rock star. You know, I saw all these flashy rock. You know, I'm gonna date myself a little bit, but the '80s rock stars, and you know, I wanted that. That's something I really wanted to, so I went after it. And I played in rock bands since I was about 35, and then, you know, everybody kept telling me, well, if you haven't made it by the time you're 35 in the rock and roll business, you're done. So I actually quit playing for about 5 years, and then I finally got, you know, you get the music gets inside your bones. You know, you can't let it go when you're a musician. It's always there, and so I found another band, and we played for a couple of years, and that kind of fizzled out. And I ended up playing in an acoustic duo with this girl, and we played, I don't know, probably 3-4 years together, and it was all secular music, still playing in bars. And through that, I met another guy that I've been playing in a secular duo with for probably 2.5 years now, and that's about coming to an end. But through that journey, you know, I cut a CD way back in my early days, and it was a rock CD. And but something about, I don't know, about 10 months ago, you know, I just felt God telling me, hey, I want you to do something different with your music, and I want you to do it to glorify me and not you. And I went, okay. You know, I joined a church about 3 years ago. My wife and we joined a church, became members. Never done that before. That's my first. I tried out for the worship team. I wanted to do that for years. I made that. I've been playing on the worship team for probably 2.5 years now, and been going to some Christian festivals. And I just really felt God telling me to do something different with my music than the secular music. And I went to Life Fest, which is a weekend-long event back here in Oshkosh. And, you know, they have like King and Country, We the Kingdom, and then Ben Fuller played. And you know, God had been telling me to do something different in my music for a while, but I didn't know what it was. And I saw Ben Fuller play, and I was like, you know, I think God said, okay, you're not listening to me very well, so I'm going to use Ben. I'm going to have Ben talk to you a little bit. And through his music, just watching him play and how he worshiped God in the music, and it was nothing about, hey, look at me. It was all, look at God. God's doing this, and just his words and his humbleness. And I wrote my first song that weekend. It was my salvation song, that He Rescued Me. And then I've since been in the studio in Nashville twice. I cut an EP that should be coming out sometime in July, and it's been a wild ride. It's just so much more meaningful music and so much deep feeling for me, you know. That's kind of been my journey.
I really understand that, Howard. I like that song, He Rescued Me. Now, the song goes, standing alone, buried in shame, wondering where my life went wrong, crying to God for someone to blame, knowing this life I had was gone. What powerful
Yeah.
words, my friend. Wow.
Thank you.
What inspired you through some sort of experience that you had gone through? Mostly a lot of singer-songwriters, regardless of whether they have faith in God or not, basically their music and their lyrics are born from an experience that they just have to get out.
Right. So when I was in that rock band, I got married very young, had children very young, and trying to do that and trying to do the marriage and trying to do the rock and roll thing. And, I was living the rock and roll life. I made terrible decisions, and uh, I wasn't around much for my kids, and uh, everything just, my marriage was basically over.
Mm.
I had an affair, and, I did what I did. And it's just between the affair, I got some real bad depression. I had struggles with some of my kids. My job was extremely stressful. I just woke up one Sunday morning and said, I'm done. I'm not going to be here anymore. And I got up, jumped in my truck and drove, and somehow I ended up in a church parking lot. I'd been going to this church off and on for a while, and I ended up in that church parking lot. We don't know how I got there. And I walked in, the service was on, and man, it was just like the pastor was talking directly to me, and I broke down. I lost it. I I cried to God. I asked Jesus to come into my life and be a personal relationship with me as opposed to just knowing He was there. And I walked out of that church and I drove home. Um, so, but that really, that first verse is that whole transition of going through all that and then really coming to God and accepting Jesus as my Savior in that moment. So,
Standing alone, buried in shame, wondering where my life went wrong. Wow. I can imagine what you were feeling during that time you were buried in shame. And we're all buried in shame, but don't realize that we need a savior till we come to him and realize naked and before him, and then we just shed our hearts to the Lord because he knows it anyway. Because the Bible says
right,
in John that he knows what is in man anyway.
right.
So he knows already, but he just wants to come to him. Now, can I ask how you felt going in and how you felt that when you left? Did you feel
When
any
I,
change?
oh yeah, oh yeah. So when I went in, I was completely broken. I mean, depression was heavy. I felt like I had a 10,000 pound weight on my shoulder. And, my whole plan was to walk out of that church and be done.
Hmm.
And when I was in there, as I broke down, I mean, I bawled. It was a church full of people, but it was almost like I was alone. And I felt something like almost like wrap their arms around me. I just felt this comfort from head to toe. It almost like saying, "Hey, it's not your time," you know. And when it was weird because when I left, it's like everything stayed in that pew. You know what I mean? I took that weight off, and it sat in that pew, and I left. It was, I mean, I can't really express what the feeling was, but it was, I mean, it was life changing for sure.
It reminds me of that Robert De Niro movie, The Mission, where he carried that large pack on his back everywhere he went, including climbing that mountain. Finally, he was able to let it go.
Yeah, yep,
That's how
yeah,
you feel when you give your life
yep,
to the Lord. It's
yep.
amazing. When you were in flight, how has your music changed? Like your faith influenced your music?
Oh boy. Back there when I was 16, it was all about girls and bad relationships and breakups. And, you know, I'm, I guess I didn't write too much about like the drugs and the alcohol and all that stuff. It was more about breakups and bad relationships and me always getting left. But it was, it was getting out in front of the people, and watching the people react. It wasn't, I mean, I wanted to be a big star, right? But it was so cool just to watch the people, and
Hmm.
then you'd have gigs where the people are going, you know, so that affected you too. Now, to back up just a little further, I grew up in a church. My mom was an organist, and she sang in the choir, and she worked at the church. So I went to church with her all through high school.
Mm.
So I knew who Jesus was, and I said the prayer, but I never really felt like I had that personal relationship. Like when I finally gave my life to him. So I got my music side from her, but so going into that, and a lot of the songs I wrote when I was a kid were pretty dumb, but they were fun. And I did record a CD back and I'm really gonna date myself. Back in '96, I recorded a rock CD. I got some pretty good airplay over in Europe, but nothing really ever happened to it. And again, the songs were, I'm going to call them depressing, because it was mostly about breakups and
Mm-hmm.
feeling alone and things like that. But, it was personal, but it was just like everything else that was out there. When I started writing, when I wrote He Rescued Me in that hotel room at Life Fest, I woke up, it was rolling in my head. I woke up and I just quick wrote everything down, and I shook my wife and said, "Get up, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this," because I had tears in my eyes, and it was like, okay, I had been playing worship music now in church for a couple of years, but I didn't know any of those songs. That was all the CCM stuff is all new to me.
Mm-hmm.
I used to listen to old Skillet and old Newsboys way back in the day, just because somebody had put it in front of me.
Went way back.
Yeah, way back. But it was rock, so I liked the rock. So I listened to the words, but I really liked the music. Now when I started playing on this worship team at church, I still, to this day, when I sing sometimes up there, I still get emotional. I get choked up. Sometimes it's hard to sing, just because what I'm writing now, I'm hoping through my life trials, which is where a lot of my music's coming from, I can help someone through something, through God's love, show them God, show them that, they are not alone, and you can be on the other side of whatever you're on. So it's just so much more meaningful, so much more impactful, I think, than obviously what I used to do.
I know what you mean. I remember when I first became a believer, I went to a little Christian concert called Greenfest, which is here in Canada, just about an hour from here. We have a city called Kitchener, and there's a little park there called Binghamton Park, and it was at Binghamton Park, and you didn't have Skillet, but you had Wayne Watson, you had the Daniel Band. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yep.
You had all these other Christian artists. You had that band that threw Bibles to the
Oh,
audience.
I don't know who that was.
Yeah, I can't remember. I guess they're not memorable if I can't remember. So I
Let me look
remember
them up.
those days. Can you give us can you just share about the inspiration behind your first album, Faith Unshaken? Where did that come from?
Well, what I really got, the EP I did, it's actually called Rescued, Redeemed, and Forgiven. It's supposed to come out in July. It's really kind of a salvation EP, and I'm planning on going in December, maybe January, to do the other half, which will be more of instead of a salvation CD, songs, more of a, thinking and moving on and spreading the word of God. That's kind of my plan with the two. So yeah, but a lot of that was, based on salvation, some trials that I've gone through in my life. So it's really based on, hey, trying to show people that you can get through whatever you're going through.
So how was your relationship with your parents?
My relationship was really good. They both passed. They passed pretty young, but like I say, I went to church with. So this is wild. So my brother also plays drums in a band. He's played his whole life. He's done a little bit of everything. He's more of a jazz drummer, really good jazz drummer. He plays jazz, blues. He did some rock. But my parents would actually come out to some of the seediest bars you could even imagine and listen to us play all the time.
Wow.
And they would almost become like, we played in some pretty rough biker bars, and the bikers kind of adopted them as their parents. They supported us all the time. I was scared for him, but my dad was an ex-Marine and he could handle himself. So, but yeah, they come out and listen to us all the time. We had a real good relationship.
That's amazing. Your music has touched my life because I know that when he touched me, and then I love your song Grace Abounds. Can you how does it feel to have such an impact?
Well, that's really why I write music. I think that's what God is telling me to do. You could say on one hand, I'm going to make you a big star, and on the other hand, I can have somebody that walked up to me like they did 2 months ago and say, "Your song When I Pray touched me. I'm a recovering." It's a song about I have a son that battles addiction, and he's almost died a few times,
Hmm.
and that's a song about from a parent's perspective going through that, right? And I have on my way to Nashville to cut this EP. I just stopped at this place because they do Christian music on Friday nights. I thought I'm gonna stop in here and see if I can get a gig sometime. And I
Wow.
walk in. I've never seen these guys before, ever. They're 4.5 hours away from me. I walk in. I talk to this guy, and he's asking what my name is, and I write my name down. I give it to him. He goes, Howard Gripp. He says, "You got a song out on Spotify, right? Like When I Pray?" And I said, "Yeah, that's mine." He goes, "I listen to that song every day. I played it for my pastors here. I played it for." He said, "I'm a recovering alcoholic. I almost died 25 times, and I couldn't imagine what my parents went through. But now through this song, I know." And that's priceless when you get things like that. And this stuff's priceless.
I know. Listen to this. I pray that God won't take you home because I don't know if you belong. The only thing that comforts me is when I pray. Wow, such
Yeah.
powerful words.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole song is great. Especially verse 2. Sitting by your bed, I cry. I cling to hope that you will open your eyes. Addictions taken hold again. I've got to find a way to get faith in.
Yeah.
That's a powerful song. Can I ask you, what is your songwriting process like to put this together?
Well, you know, I'm a drummer. Well, I play drums and bass and a little bit of keys, and I've been playing a lot of acoustic guitar. So most of my songs start with an acoustic guitar and an idea. I took a songwriting course last year with the National Christian Songwriters, John Chisholm out of Nashville, and
Huh.
I have a notebook, and every day I'm writing something in there, and I'll just go back to that notebook and I'll see what that line is, and if something starts turning in my head. Uh, Now, these first couple of songs came from life experiences right away, and When I Pray came right in the middle of dealing with my son. They told me he was going to die.
Oh,
He
wow.
didn't, but you know, it's just wherever the inspiration comes from. And like I say, I've met a couple more people that those first two songs have touched, and it makes me think more about how can I use my life's experiences to help someone else through music. And that's how I write.
That is amazing. That's so inspirational. Like, how do you stay connected to your faith in the midst of a busy music career or a busy life and still manage your mental health? There's got to be something you do to manage that properly.
I pray. I pray all the time. I mean,
Sometimes that's not enough, my friend. I figured that
uh,
out.
sometimes it's not enough. I don't know. I'm finding the trials that, and I've gone through some other trials over the last 6 months that have been pretty rough too, but I'm finding that my faith is actually getting stronger because I know that everything happens for a reason, right? And God's got whatever that reason is. I may never know what that is, but I think what I went through with my son has helped me get through another situation that I've been going through, but when you're in the middle of it, you don't think about that, right? You think about, oh, I got to get through this situation.
Mhm.
But then you get into another situation, you go, maybe that's why I went through some of that, or maybe that's going to help somebody else see something, and I mean, I do, I pray a lot, you know, I have a really nice schedule. All my stuff's on the calendar, but I have to pray a lot because that helps my faith grow. And I've got a life group through church, which has I have 4 or 5 really strong men in that group. We meet every now and then. If you got a problem, you can call any one of them up, and they'll sit there and just listen. So we got a great support group there. We got a really strong church, and everybody's just really supportive of everything that's going on right now. So,
Well, I got to get some more support because I hardly have any people in my group. I guess I have
yeah,
a lot of them calling me for support. And I'm like, well, what about me, Lord?
right,
I need
right.
help as well because God
Yep.
knows what I've been through.
Call me
So
anytime, man.
I was speaking to two other musicians. Both of them were there, who were firemen, were there for the 911 or
Mm,
9/11, as you call it.
yep.
And one gentleman, his son died. His brother passed away. He went through all these tragedies, but he managed to keep sane. He managed to walk in the faith that he said he had. It's God or somebody else, what he mentioned. I tried to tell him a little bit about who Jesus is, but you can tell the look on his face, like, don't tell me that, it's like people don't
Yep.
want to hear.
Yep.
But apart from that, yeah, I can imagine what you were going through when you thought your son was going to pass away. I can imagine what was going through your mind.
Yeah, it was terrifying. But I had pastors from my church calling me, and I had men that I had met at my church calling me, and it was, and he's still here. He's still fighting, but
Howard, you have to take every day as a gift because you never know if you're ever going to be here tomorrow. You don't know where you're going to be an hour from now. So just every day must be taken as a gift. That's why it's called the present. If you heard that
yep,
one before.
yep, I've heard that before. Yep.
Yeah. So how do you handle pressures, temptations that come with being in the music industry? Because you're talking about playing in the most shady bars and
Yep.
biker gangs who literally were good people who fell in love with your parents that they wanted to adopt them, I guess. But you must have met total opposite women who was trying to say, hey,
Oh
here's
yeah.
my number, take you to bed, whatever. All this
Yep.
temptation. How do you manage that? And you can't say I pray.
No, no,
No.
that's a tough one because like I say, most of the stuff that I do in that acoustic duo, it's it's at bars, but a lot of it's outside. But still, the temptations are all there, and and I do battle those. I battle those just like everybody else does. I look the wrong way sometimes, and you know, I'm- you know, the alcohol's there as a temptation, and so that's why I've decided that I'm going to get out of that bar scene. You know, I have some gigs that I already have scheduled with this guy, and I told him when these are done this year, I'm going to be done, and I'm going to focus on the Christian aspect of things. And because when you're playing Christian gigs, I guess some of them have alcohol and stuff in them, but most of them are coffee houses or churches or so. But there's still temptation there, right? I just I carry a picture of my daughter with me. Uh, I have that in my gig bag, and she bought me a pick, and I have a pick that sits on my microphone stand, so I can see
Wow.
that pick, and it can remind me what I have at home.
It's
That's kind of how
amazing.
I deal with it.
I guess you avoid restaurants that have bars in them.
That's hard to do.
I know. It's a restaurant, but there's a bar in it.
Yeah,
You know?
that's hard to do because most of them have bars in them anymore. But yeah, I just I just try. If it was when I was 20s or something, it'd be a lot harder because I
Mhm.
didn't know then what I know now, and I didn't know then how to keep myself in check, you know, and I didn't maybe realize what I had when I had it until I lost it. And now that I've found it again, that, that's never going to happen again.
I want to ask, why do you think that sex, drugs, rock and roll, I guess alcohol is synonymous with music? And
I don't know. I think it's just you get big and you get those egos and you want to show what you can do and you want to make sure that everybody's having a good time because you want as many people around you as possibly can. And they all want to party and have fun and they all want to escape whatever their life is outside that door. They can escape it for a few hours. And I mean, I was in that. We loved having people around all the time, and partying was the best way to do it. Because everybody had something in common.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you like everyone knows who are believers knows Isaiah 41:10 on your shirt, fear not. What sort of reprisals do you get when people come up to you who are atheists or people that don't want anything to do with God kind of threaten you or you have the protection of God there? You must have gone through that. I've gone through that before. I've had my Bible stolen. I've had, you name it. It's like,
Yeah, I think mine is more of a spiritual warfare right now. I've only been writing Christian music for 10 months now. So, and I'm just starting to play Christian shows uh, because a lot of places don't want, even though you say you're a Christian, they don't want somebody that's playing in bars to come play in their establishment, which makes sense to me. Um, but, I haven't really faced that kind of controversy yet. I've expected it to be here already, but it hasn't come yet, except for the spiritual warfare I face. It seems like every time something good starts happening with the music, something bad happens in my life. And then it'll kind of even out, and then something really good will start happening to the music, and then wham, something happens again every time so far. So
why can't, like, I just finished reading Job. Why can't
yeah.
something that bad happens in our lives, why can't that be from God?
Oh,
Why
it
does
is.
God always have to give us good? Why not bad, just to teach us something?
God gives us bad just as much as he gives us good. And, you got to thank him for the bad times just as well as you have to thank him for the good times because you're going through that for something. For some reason, you're going through that. He's putting you in that spot for some reason to either help you or for you to help someone else later down the road or for somebody else to see, that was probably the hardest thing that I have had to learn through my faith journey is because, before, whenever something bad happened, why? Why are you
Mm-hmm.
doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? And I'm not going to say that, like when I got that phone call about my son
Mm.
being in the hospital and he was going to have 10 hours away, 8 hours away. And I'm not going to kid you. The first thing I said was, why is this happening to me? And I stopped and I said, nope. I just started praying for him instead of worrying about why I thought something was happening to me. I needed to turn that and pray for him. So that's the toughest thing a Christian can learn.
I know what you mean. My father had been gone already over 20 years, and when he was in the hospital dying of this lung and liver cancer, and just cancer took over his body, even if I prayed, he still passed away. But I went to the hospital, and he wasn't in his room. I freaked out. I said, "Where is he? You didn't tell me he died."
Yeah.
I don't want to say cursing the nurses, whatever, but I certainly wasn't showing them much of a loving Christian spirit then.
Right. Right.
But then I turned around and said, instead of being with my father that one night, I wanted to go on a date with a girl that ended up not being my wife, but I was engaged to her twice. So I went on his date, and the next morning he passed away, and I'm like, what a stupid choice I made. I could have been there first,
Yeah.
but at least I prayed and spoke in his ear, and hopefully one day the Lord will say, "Look who's here." I said,
Yeah.
you made it, That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I went through the exact same thing with my dad. He died of, well, he had lung cancer, but it eventually went to his brain. But he actually got saved on his deathbed.
Oh, that's very
So
rare, but thank
yeah.
God. Wow.
Yeah. He actually had time. I mean, he believed in God. I think, he was I would go to church twice a year, Easter and Christmas. Uh, and, my mom was very strong in her faith.
Mm.
Uh, but when he got cancer on his deathbed, he got saved. So I'll see him again. And I'll see my mom, obviously, again.
course. Can you tell us about your involvement in many of the charitable activities that you're part of?
Well, I'm just kind of starting down that road. My wife has actually, she's kind of taken on a challenge of working with human trafficking.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we're kind of trying to pair the
Wow.
music with her process of wanting to fight that. We're just
Wow.
fairly new to that, but she did a presentation at our church a few weeks ago, and we're thinking about doing some kind of like a big garage sale and having music in the corner and just to raise money to try to do that. I'm in a song competition right now called You God's Music, and that
Mm.
is giving money back to my church, and it's giving money to a foundation called Under the Bridge out of San Antonio, Texas, for homeless people to feed them. And
Oh, that's
you know,
awesome.
yeah,
That's good.
so
That's great.
yeah.
Wow. You ever feel like what's your favorite instrument that you love playing that makes you feel more close to God?
That's gonna be guitar. I think I'm getting ready to purchase a keyboard. I think that will be it once I get that back, because I haven't played that for a while. But right
Mm.
now it's the guitar, just because I'm learning new worship chords, so it brings a new sound to my ear, and it just it's more full, and it's the guitar.
Do you feel that it's easier to sing when you're strumming than it is to sing when you're drumming, like Phil Collins? Like he can drum and sing at the same time. Well, used to anyway.
That's what I used to do. I used to play drums and sing. Back in my rock and roll days, that's what I did. Eventually, I moved out front because I wanted to promote the CD I had. But yeah, I can. I think they're the hardest for me right now is probably singing and playing bass guitar, because I'm not really that fluent with bass yet. I have to think a little more when I play that. But like the guitar and the drums just kind of happen.
Are you still in touch with the guys from Flight?
No. Well, no, that's not true. One of the guitarists I think has passed away, but yeah, I've still uh, I'm friends on Facebook with one of them. We don't talk a lot, but probably the biggest band I was in back then was Stinger. That's the one that kind of hit that record and started promoting that. And we actually did a reunion gig. I don't know, 2 years ago maybe. That was kind of fun seeing everybody again. Yeah, so we still keep in touch.
Who's that a poster of behind you?
That's Eddie Van Halen.
You got Van Halen on there, huh?
Oh, I started with Van Halen and Styx. Those are my two bands when I started, way back when.
Styx and Dennis DeYoung, yes, him and Tommy
Oh yeah,
Shaw. And they had to kick
yeah,
him out of the band. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. Well,
I've seen every iteration of all of them.
wow. Well, so I know you mentioned your the gospel bands, but who were your biggest influences in gospel music?
Ben Fuller. I just love his humility and his lyrics. You know, Phil Wickham is a big
Oh
influence for
yeah,
me. I like
he's
Zach
got that great
Williams.
song called Grace. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Zach Williams, a Crowder.
Hmm.
Uh, those are all the kind of I love Skillet, but I'm not quite that hard. Skillet's probably my favorite, but my stuff's not quite that hard.
Well, I like Casting Crowns and Mercy
Oh
Me
yeah,
are two of my
oh
favorite
yeah,
bands. I
yep,
got a whole Spotify list of Christian bands that I've listened to since WDCX. I remember your late 80s WDCX had WCX 99.5 had some really great music. But it's changed actually.
yeah.
So what would you give, like what kind of advice would you give to young artists who want to pursue gospel music or any type of music?
Well, I'm not sure what I guess if you're a young artist and you're going to pursue whatever career that is, whether it's gospel music or rock music or whatever kind of genre it is, I mean, if you really want to pursue it, you got to go all in, And when I did it, I relied on myself and I made my own decisions, and a lot of bad stuff happened, But there's other bands that have done that and they've made it big, But who knows what's behind closed doors with those guys? But you know, if you're going to do it, you got to do it 100%, because it's not going to happen at if you're going to do it as a hobby, you know, if you're going, and there's nothing wrong with doing it as a hobby. You know, if you want to play music and just do some bar gigs and just make some money, there's nothing wrong with that either. But, you know, I think if, especially in the Christian realm of things, I think you really have to dedicate your whole being to it, you know, and you have to rely on God. I mean, God's the one that's got me on this journey, and not me. You know, God's the one opening all these crazy doors that are opening. It's not me. You know, he opens the door, I walk through it. If he closes the door, I walk away from it. So,
Do you believe there's satanic music and Christian music, or do you think music is created by God, so whether it's secular music or not is still godly, I guess you'd call it? What's your
that's a
thought
good,
on that?
that's a good question. I'm not sure I know how to answer that question. Because everything's from God, right? We have the choice to do what we want to do. That's what God gave us, right? And if our choice is to make Christian music or family oriented music or heavy metal music, you know, that he's given us the choice.
Hmm.
Yeah, we've away
So
from that one.
no, because thinking I heard there's a version of Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin, but they put Christian lyrics to it. Sounded
Oh,
pretty
I've
good.
heard. Yeah, yeah,
You
for
think it's
sure.
the right thing to do?
You know, I'd really have to delve into what the lyrics are right now. I don't know. You know, if you listen to a song, no matter what it is, 9 times out of 10, you can probably come up with 5 songs right out of that song. Well, this line goes like this. Oh, well, this line went up instead of down. They're
Hmm.
basically the same song, but
Yeah.
somebody's singing it a little differently, or they're playing a riff just a little differently to make it their own. You know, I've seen a lot of Instagram and YouTubers go on and do like 10 songs in a row, and it's all the same song, but it's 10
Yeah.
different songs. So,
Oh yeah. There was this controversy some time ago, but Beyonce had a song called Halo, and she released it. But talking about songs sound alike. There's a song by Dua Lipa called "Levitating." That song has been like 4 or 5 different times with the same sort of melody. Well, Kelly Clarkson wanted to release her song "Already Gone," but it sounds a lot like Halo, and she could
oh,
not release it because of that.
really?
Yeah, I mean it's crazy.
See, that's the other thing I found different in the Christian realm of music. I mean, you can have one song out there, 15 different artists have it out there. It's just their own rendition. I mean, legally, you can go and reproduce anybody's song that you want as long as you go buy the mechanical rights for it. You know, they still get their royalties, but I just you hear that a lot more in the Christian realm than you do in the secular realm, which I found interesting. But
Well, you say that's odd for Christians to be told off. Well, not told off, but they're going to play Christian music in a bar. Said, "Oh, this guy's going to judge us not to drink." Well, my friend, you're going to find this kind of funny, but I don't know if you ever heard of that song, "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God."
no, never heard
Mighty
it.
fortress is our God, a bulwark never faileth. That was a bar tune, my friend.
Oh, was it?
That used to be a bar tune.
Well, that's pretty cool. I've actually got a couple of people to come to church from some of the gigs I played at. I mean, I'm not scared to witness in a bar. If you
That's
open a
awesome.
door, I'm walking through it.
Oh yeah, I've done that at work so many times,
Yeah,
and God allowed me to, I don't want to say witness, but preach to my
yeah,
coworkers for like 10, 15 minutes. They said, okay. So I gave them the whole John Hankey. John,
yeah, yeah.
oh, that's amazing. So you're talking about music being duplicated. What do you think of AI and Suno and Udio and all these music makers? Is that going to kill you or not?
It's not going to kill me because I, I'm I write songs for I don't want to say I write songs for the masses because I'm writing songs that hope that I can help that one person. I can help that one person. I'm not a big fan of the AI. I mean, I just watched an interview that you did with an opera singer. I can't Madeline. I can't remember what her name was.
Hannah McNally.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah,
Hmm.
and you asked her the same question about that AI, and I agreed with
Yeah.
her when she said you lose that realness. You use that. I think you lose that connection. You know, I don't think you get that real, like the vibrato. I'm sure AI can do all that, but it's just that personal connection. I just don't think they'll ever be able to duplicate that. I mean,
So,
it's coming. You know, we can't stop it, but
yeah. Well, there is that last Beatles song, and Ringo Starr and Paul
yeah,
McCartney says last Beatles song. Now and then, they used AI to remove the vocals, John Lennon's vocals from the piano,
yeah,
and George Harrison. They put them all together. So AI is good for something.
right. And but they actually sang it, right? They actually used their voices through that. So that's a little different, I guess. I guess I'm more talking about when they go, okay, I want you AI to write me a song from scratch that I'm going to go put on the top 10 Billboard list. Go, you know.
So, what if you had the chance to do a duet with George Beverly Shea? But he's been dead for like 10, 20 years, I think.
Yeah,
103, I
that
think.
might be too weird for me.
Yeah. All this controversy that Natalie Cole did when she sang a duet with her father, Nat, Unforgettable. And
Yeah,
so much hate because of that. You can't do that. He's been gone. Be respectful. But he's my
yeah,
father, you know. It's like,
yeah.
so Howard, do you think that your music has evolved over the years?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's come. I think it's evolved over the last 10 months. I mean,
In what way?
just when I wrote that first Christian song, I really didn't know what I was doing. You know, I hadn't written music for a long time. And when I wrote that song, it was all emotion. You know, it was all emotion. And I put myself right back in that, at that day in that church, and it was all emotion,
Hmm.
you know, and I had to learn. So I took a songwriting, 8-week songwriting course to learn how to write Christian music because I didn't know how to do it. But I knew that's what I wanted to do. You know, the structure's a little different. You know, the words need to be more connecting and they need to be connected in the songs, you know, and uh, I'm getting better at that. I think the EP that's coming out in July will show a definitely growth from those first two songs that I did, and I expect the one in December to be even more growth. So
Hmm. So, do you think the gospel music industry has changed in the last 20 years? Because like I mentioned before, I remember Daniel Band. I love Casting Crowns, Mercy Me.
yeah,
But then you had, as I say, Christian contemporary metal bands like Striper and all
yeah,
that stuff. You
yeah,
know, like really, I didn't know for the longest time that you could worship God with heavy metal song. But like I said, I think God created all music. So whether it's
yeah,
jazz or metal,
yep.
as long as the lyrics are pure, you can probably take "He rescued me, made me face what I had done. He rescued me. He met me where I was," with "Thunderstruck" in the background.
Oh yeah, for sure you
Yeah,
could.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't. If you're talking musically, what the industry has done, you know, I think it's evolved, but you know, you talk about Striper, you still got Skillet. Skillet's still out there hammering. You know, they're a loud rock show. I've seen them like 10 times. I really like them. But, you know, but you also see people praying in the crowd. You know, but you're not going to go to, I don't know, some death metal show and see anybody praying. Well, they might be, I guess. But you know, I think the business itself, you know, I don't know as if the Christian music business is much different in now than secular business. I think there's still people that are out for the money. You know, I know that if they say they're gospel or they're Christian, but you know they're still kind of after that mighty dollar. And you know, I'm not going to say that if somebody didn't come up and say, "Hey, I'm going to give you a recording contract for $1 million," I wouldn't think about it. But that's not what I'm trying to do anymore.
Hmm.
You know, I'm just looking for a platform to play my music that can hopefully touch somebody. And if that's 5 people or 500 people, whatever, you know, I think it's just like any other business. It's a cutthroat business to a point. even because, like you said, somebody can say they're a Christian, right? But maybe they're not. Maybe they don't have that personal relationship. Maybe they believe in God and they believe in Jesus, but they haven't really committed their life to Him being their Savior.
Yeah, those recording contracts. If you get a chance, check out my episode with Tracy Tree. She knows all about recording contracts,
Oh,
what they entail, what to do. And Steve Maxworthy. In fact, Steve Maxworthy used to be part, and he's a friend of mine. He was part of a big 80s band. And actually, there was a recording contract that they had to sign, and all the pitfalls and everything. And just
yeah.
because you're up $1 million doesn't mean it's your money. You have to pay it back, right?
Yeah. Depending on what
Some
your
of
contract is. Yeah.
some of the stories he told me, like I love talking to musicians and finding out all about this, because then I can tell the next artist,
Right.
listen, what you just said, let me tell you, check
Yeah.
out this episode. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So what do you think is the most challenging part of being a gospel artist? Like what would be the most challenging?
I'll tell you what my challenging part is right now. I live in northern Wisconsin. I can't find any place to play Christian music. I mean, I'm driving 4.5 hours to play a gig. Like
Hmm.
tomorrow, I'm driving 2.5 hours to play a Christian festival way on the other side of Wisconsin. I can't find anything around here
Hmm.
to play, and I don't want to move yet. But as if 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 God wants this to grow, I'm going to have to find places to play. So that's my biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, I can imagine. So how would you describe your music in one sentence?
Inspirational and powerful.
Is that easy to do? That's easy to say.
No, because just because I think it's inspirational and I think it's powerful doesn't mean anybody else is gonna. Right?
Do you ever have contact with your first wife? Is she a Christian? I mean, no
Uh,
interest.
I can't. I don't know if she is a Christian or not. We went to church. I got her to go to church a little bit, but it just really wasn't her thing. And I know her family was her mom and dad were strong Christians, um, but I can't tell you whether she was saved or not. I don't know. I mean, we do still keep in touch because we still have we still have 3 boys together, and the one is still struggling pretty hard. So we still stay in touch pretty frequently about that. But as far as her being saved, I think she is, but I don't know.
And where did you meet your current wife? If you mind me asking?
Met her online on a Christian dating site
Oh yeah,
because when I got divorced, you know everything had crumbled. I got saved, and I wanted to find somebody that was strong in their faith that would help me build my faith, not only back to where it was, but way above and beyond. And we met, and the first, maybe the third date, we went to church. She took me to church a couple of times, and uh, she's very strong in her faith. She has 2 girls; they're very strong in their faith, and her family is very strong in their faith. So it was perfect. It was exactly what I was looking for, and I think God put me there. God put us both there. So
I think if God really wants you to move forward in your music, it's got to be on His time. I think we fail mostly because we take a step ahead of Him. That's why the Bible says about the Lord that uh, our steps are ordered by the Lord. So I mean, we can take a step ahead of Him, and then we'll just fail. But if we just trust Him, I feel that if I just trust the Lord, then He can do a lot more for you than you can do for yourself. Even if He said, "I no longer want you to do music,"
yep, yep, yep.
how would that
So
make
I've
you
got
feel?
I'm okay with that because so when my now wife Michelle and I got married and we started on this journey, we both sat down and we said we have to be on the same page on absolutely every single decision that's going to happen, because that's not what happened in my previous marriage, and that was more my fault than anything, right? But I want to make sure that we are all together. And just like I said, if he opens the door, we're going to walk through it. And if he closes the door, we're going to walk away from it. And and he may tomorrow say, that's it. This was the journey I wanted you on. You're playing in a worship team in a very strong church. That's where I want you to be. And I'll keep writing, but I won't. If he doesn't want me to pursue it how I'm pursuing it now, then it will stop. But and one thing. So I have an executive producer who's a Christian, who runs a Christian record label. I have a marketing guy that's a Christian, and I went to a showcase a couple of weeks ago in Nashville, and he was there, and he said, I got something in the works, but I want you to hold off on releasing your songs. And I'm thinking, oh, well, God gave me these songs. I'm supposed to be getting them out here. One thing I'm going to tell you as a Christian, you need to be patient. Just be patient. Work on God's timeline and be patient. So that's hard for me. That's something I struggle with, but I'm learning how to be patient. So
I like your song, Hello, It's Me. Like, that's a journey of faith. But do people say, hey, you did a cover of Todd Rundgren's song?
that one, no, not yet anyway, but
Hello,
yeah,
it's me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Tell me about that one.
That one is really about, it's my journey, right? I started in the church with my mom. I decided I was going to be a rock star, and I kind of moved out and did everything on my own, made my own decisions. And I did pray, but it was only when something was wrong or if I needed something, right? Like a whole bunch of other people do. And then, life crashed, and God helped me pick the pieces up, and my faith is stronger than ever now. So it's kind of like, hey, I left for a while, but hello, I'm back. I'm back, and I'm all in.
If you said that earlier, our podcast could have been 7 minutes long. How dare you keep me on so long?
You asked about the wrong song first.
Of course. So where do you go from here? Like, where do you see yourself a year from now? Mind me asking, if that's fair.
I have no idea. I'm super excited. I'm in that competition with You Guys Music, and if I finish in the top 5 in another week and a half, I get to go to San Antonio and play at the Tobin Theater in front of I don't know how many people and judges, and then I've got Christian festivals lined up here and some Christian gigs at some coffee shops, and those are just as exciting as that is to me right now. And I'm hoping to do the other EP at the end of the year, and I don't know where it's going to go. I'm super open to letting God pave the way and push me down whatever road he wants to push me down.
Mind me asking who you would like to collaborate if you could? Who, except Taylor Swift. So who, just kidding.
Yeah, no,
who
you're right
would
there.
you like to collaborate with?
I'd love to collaborate with Ben Fuller. I think that would be awesome.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if our music blends well, but I think we could do something that'd be super cool. There's, to be honest with you, there's a bunch of artists that no one's ever heard of that I want to do some collaborating with, and some of them I met through this You Guys Music. They're phenomenal Christian musicians that, who knows? Again, it might just be something for us and God, or us and maybe our church and God. But I'm willing to collaborate with anybody. But yeah, Ben Fuller, that'd be super cool.
Well, I was part of a gospel group at the church. We call ourselves the Gentlemen of Song, and I did a lot of solos. I did a lot of Mercy Me songs.
Yep.
So I'm happy that the Lord has blessed me with a voice, and I don't want to brag about that. I'm just saying, let's be humble.
Okay.
Be humble about it. So how about the worship team? Isn't there anybody there that you'd want to collaborate with who would be very interested? Why don't you pray and say, God, is there anybody here that maybe I can get a group together or something?
Well,
Like
funny
Simon
you say that.
Group.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, because I've talked to the bass player, and I've talked to one of the drummers, and our worship pastor and I are talking about writing together. So that's, I get such great support from all of them. I'd love to write with any of them. So, but yeah, because I want to kind of do a EP release, and we talked about maybe doing it at the church, and I've talked to the drummer and the bass player about that, and talk to the worship leader, and I have to bring a couple other people in. But yeah, that's already been talked about.
Yeah, your song "He Rescued Me" and "When I Pray," like it's like you want to stick with one particular genre, or would you not? Would you mind writing a Christian song or gospel song that's a jazzy or contemporary, more like maybe soft, or are you going to stick with one genre?
Yeah, well, those two songs I did with a company out of Nashville. They ran some kind of special. Hey, $450 a song. We'll record the stuff. You come down here and do your vocals. And I didn't have a whole lot to do with the production, so it turned out a little more country than I wanted it to. I'm okay with those two songs, but this next EP is very CCM rockish. I mean, it's more in the genre that I want to be in, but I don't have a problem with that. I talked to a record label out of Nashville. It's a country record label, and they think that a couple of these songs we could throw on the country side of things. I don't know if that's a road I want to go down, but I'm not opposed to it. And when I used to write, everything was that soft, mellow, laid back. I kind of want to stay in one genre, but but have it so it could go one way or the other.
Well, I'm just letting you know that I love Italian operas, and if I was to write an opera tune, I would start with writing it in English, have it translated in Italian, and then put it through an AI just to come up with that opera tune. I mean, I don't know very many people who want to help me write an opera tune or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
like I have lyrics here I wrote 20 years ago with one of my friends, Bill. He did just different notes of strumming on a guitar, and I said, "That's it. Let's use that." And I would just write. It's kind of silly, just if I were to rewrite them and actually.
That's how songs happen a lot of times. That's it right there.
That's true. So before we end the stream, my friend, can you give one word of advice to up and coming Howard Gripps out there? Do you have one particular mode of advice that would be suited for everyone?
Well, I would say that God's telling me I'm not too old, so I don't think you're ever too old to follow your dream, whatever that is. I used to think that, that's why I stopped for a while, but God's telling me I'm not too old to do this dream, so you're not too old to do it either, wherever you're at in the spectrum. So that would be my advice. Just follow it, whatever it is.
I really like that. Okay, everyone, Howard Gripp, gospel artist. Everything will be linked down below, including his song, "He Rescued Me," and "When I Pray." Really, really fantastic music. I really appreciate this interview. Just wait right there. We're going to end this stream. Okay, everyone. Thank you for joining us, Howard.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Standing alone, buried in shame, wondering where my life went wrong, crying to God for someone to blame, knowing the life I had was gone, living in fear of choices I made, thinking there was only one way out, but God found me, held out his hand, and lifted me up off the ground. He rescued me, made me face what I had done. He rescued me and met me where I was. He rescued me. He came to show me there was no doubt that he could turn my life around. Just made a choice, trusting in faith. In him a new life could be found. Out of my darkness, searching for hope, I found a light to take its place. Never too far gone, never too far lost for him to forgive my past mistakes. He rescued me, made me face what I had done. He rescued me and met me where